Recording in progress.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Been a minute, but I'm back at it. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Let me get at this. Shabbat shalom. Get moving. Get moving. Getting at it. So today I want to deal with from men to food, from men to food, and basically show that people been lying about what's clean and unclean. So I'm gonna break this down into two parts. I'm gonna do. I'm gonna basically have to break this down because I want to deal with the food part, and then I'm gonna hit on to the men part. So let me get at that. Abaya, thank you for the Shabbat. Thank you for this opportunity to go forth in your will. Let your honor always come forth, as well as your will and presence be manifest. I thank you that you're giving me this opportunity and time to teach, and may edification come out of this. I'm always open to learn myself, so I hope that I even gain from what I teach today and be able to even ask even more questions of myself. So let's get at it. Let's get at it. So I've been consistently seeing people teach lately that you're gonna be sinning when you're eating meat. And they use the narrative of how it was originally in the garden, ignoring that we are not dealing with the same situation. Far as there was no sin, there was no um, effects of sin that were going on with Adam and Eve. So a lot of the context that they use about that narrative does not even fit us as beings. They do this when it comes to, the Adam only had one wife's narrative. Also ignoring that if Adam only had one wife, that means all of the children had the same parentage. And so those children, for them to produce, would have to commingle. But that's not my focus at the moment. I want to deal with what we call food. Now, seeing that I live in the United States, there is a perception of what food is here in the United States. But if I was to live in Asia, a lot of things that are not tolerated as food here in the United States would be acceptable as food. So from culture to culture, you see that people choose different things that fit their culture to be food. I've been dealing with social studies. And so if you're dealing with the social study of Yasharal or Israel or the people of the book, you see that they had a different dynamic than most. Their comprehension of what food is was not globally, or I don't even believe in the globe, was not unique. Well, it was unique to them and not something that other places or other people took in. Like, if you eat halal food, halal, they take in almost everything that's on the ground, the same as Israel. But then when it comes to things of the water, they take in shellfish and things of that nature, which are bottom feeders. Israelites are not supposed to take that in. So let's go. Let's get to reading because instead of me just running my mouth, it's better to show you in the text exactly what the text says and let the text speak for itself. So I'm going to start off first here as I share my screen in Bereshit and show you what things originally or how it started. But we can't stay where we started, but that's where we're going to start at. So right here in Bereshit, going from what's called the first chapter, verse 29. And it says, And Elohim said, See, I have given you every plant that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed, to you it is for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to every creeping creature on the earth in which there is living being, every green plant is for food. And it came to be so. And Elohim saw all that he had made, and see, it was very good. So this is everything he made was viewed as good. Not good for eating because he specifically said the green plants, but the purpose of everything that was created was intact. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the sixth day. Dealt with that many times. The morning part or the beginning part of the day already had happened, and it came to be evening, and then it came around to the whole nother morning, and then start over. But let's keep moving. As you move forward, you go through that whole narrative in the beginning, but then now you want to go to the eating after the flood. Adam and Eve were the beginning, but as the flood occurred, all society was supposed to be gone. And he's starting over with Noah, and his three sons and their wives. So, verse 18 here says, So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. And so you got every beast, every creeping creature, and every bird, whatever creeps on the earth, according to their kind, went out of the ark. And Noah built a slaughter place to Yahuwah, and took of every clean beast. Many who have read the Noah story notice that they were clean and unclean identified. But those that he set apart and for the slaughter place were the clean beasts and of every clean bird, and offered ascending offerings on the slaughter place. These were the things that were offered up to Yah. They were clean. They were set apart. I'm identifying this clearly to show you that Yah accepted the clean beasts, clean birds. Yah accepted him. We are in his image. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Going over here to Bereshit 9. And I'm going to start at the beginning. And Elohim favored Noah and his sons and said to them, Be fruitful and increase. The same, basically instructions that he gave Adam, he is now giving this man that would be responsible for replenishing the earth. Just as Adam was responsible, now Noah is responsible and his sons. Be fruitful and increase and fill the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you is on every beast of the earth, and on every bird of the heavens, on all that creeps on the ground, and on all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they have been given. Every creeping creature that lives is food for you. Hmm. It was plants at first, but now it's every creeping creature. Some people will try to take this and say that everything, the clean and unclean, is food. No. Again, he set apart to Yahuwah for the offering, the clean. And that's what they were to take in, the clean. I have given you all as I gave the green plants. You don't eat the flesh with the life in it, with the blood. But some will take this and say every creature is food. No. Yah has set dietary laws. He has identified what is set apart, what is clean, and what is unclean. Many want to address this. Let me stop this, share the screen, and just talk a little bit. When you look at most of what we call unclean, they are good when they're serving their purpose, when they're not on your plate, but when they're set for what they do. When you look at the swine will eat almost anything. So if you have dead bodies, carcasses of animals, stuff like that, the swine will eat that. So they're basically waste management. The shellfish, the bottom feeders, they eat the feces of other animals as well as eat the carcasses. So again, they're waste management. If we touch something unclean, we become unclean. But if the unclean things eliminate the unclean or the dead, it gives us more opportunity to remain clean and set apart. Hard for some people to take that in because they've eaten a lot of these unclean things. I did in my youth, and they taste so good. And it's like, okay, does the taste of something override the design and the purpose of that thing? When you think about some of the stuff that most of us have heard, or maybe you haven't heard, I've heard that antifreeze has a sweet taste, and you have to be careful with that. Your dogs or animals will eat that or lick that up and die. It's poison, but it supposedly has a sweet taste. I wouldn't know. I've never tried it, but I've heard that the sweet taste and everything means that it tastes good, but it's poison. So when you think about these unclean things, they taste good, but they're poison. They're not good. Let's go over to Yah's dietary law. I'm going to go over here to Waikra or Leviticus and show his dietary law. And that gives forth some structure and some clarity. It was obvious that Noah knew what was clean and unclean because as he gathered to take things to save them from the flood, he labeled them. And then when it came to offering to Yah, he only offered up things that were clean. So, one can conclude, not adding, that if he said something is unclean, he wasn't eating it. And prior to, they were only eating plants, fruits, vegetables. This new diet or change to the diet came about after the flood. I've dealt with a lot of folks, modernly now that try to make it and say that eating flesh of animals is a sin. But let's keep going. Going over to Waikra and going over to 11. Let me share my screen. All right. So it says, Speak to the children of Yasharal, saying, These are the living creatures which you do eat among all the beasts that are on the earth. This is Yahuwah speaking. Oh, I've been told by these that don't eat any meat, some that this was added, but this is something that's highlighted multiple times, not just here in Leviticus. But let's keep going. Whatever has a split hoof completely divided, chewing the cud among the beasts that you do eat. Only these you do not eat among those that chew the cud or those that have split hoof. The camel, because it chews the cud but does not have a split hoof, it is unclean to you. And the rabbit, because it chews the cud but does not have split hoof, it is unclean to you. And the hare, because it chews the cud but does not have a split hoof, it is unclean to you. The pig, swine, though it has split hoof, completely divided, yet does not chew the cud, it is unclean to you. That's that waste management animal. Their flesh you do not eat, and their carcasses you do not touch. They are unclean to you. This culture dealing with social studies, this culture of people would not see these animals that are unclean as food. They would see them as animals serving a purpose of waste management, but not as food. These you do not eat of all that are in the waters. Anyone that has fins and scales is in the waters, in the seas, or in the rivers that you do eat. So catfish does not have scales. You got shellfish, does not have fins and scales. But all that have not fins and scales in the seas and in the rivers, all that move in the waters, or any living being which is in the waters, they are an abomination to you. Look up that word abomination. That's something very serious to Yah. It's not something he takes light. They are an abomination to you. Of their flesh you do not eat, and their carcasses you abominate. We ain't even supposed to touch them. So, okay, you're a food preparer. You don't eat it, but you still have to touch it to prepare the food. We shouldn't be even preparing this as food. It's not food for us. It may be food for other people, but we shouldn't even be preparing it for them. But let me keep going. All that have not fins or scales in the waters are an abomination to you, and these you do not abominate among the birds. They are not eaten, they are abomination. The eagle and the vulture and the black vulture. These are very big predatory birds. Then you got a smaller one, and the hawk and the falcon after its kind, but they're predatory birds. They feed off of other birds. Raven and crows fit in the same book, but every raven after its kind, and the ostrich, and the nighthawk, and the seagull, and the hawk after its kind, and the little owl, and the fisher owl, and the great owl, and the white owl, and the pelican, and the carrion vulture, and the stork, the heron after its kind, and the hopu, and the bat. Bats look like flying rats almost to me. All flying insects that creep on all fours is an abomination to you. See, it makes four, creeps on all four. Only these you do not eat of every flying insect that creeps on all fours. those which have jointed legs above their feet with which to leap on the earth. These are them you do eat: the arbet locust after its kind, and the solemn locust after its kind, and the hargol locust after its kind, and the hagab locust after its kind. But all other flying insects which you have 4 feet are an abomination to you. And by these you are made unclean. Anyone touching the carcass of any of them is unclean until evening. And anyone picking up part of the carcass of any of them has to wash his garments and shall be unclean until evening. Every beast that has split hoof, not completely divided, or does not chew the cud is unclean to you. Anyone who touches their carcass is unclean, and whatever goes on its paws among all creatures that go on all fours, those are unclean to you. Paws is usually dog or canines, or the big cats like lions, leopards, and stuff like that. Those are unclean to you. Anyone who touches their carcass is unclean until evening. I keep adding. Okay. And he who picks up their carcass has to wash his garments and shall be unclean until evening. They are unclean to you. And these are unclean to you among the creeping creatures that creep on the earth: the mole and the mouse and the tortoise after its kind. And here goes some lizards and stuff, and the gecko and the land crocodile and the sand reptile and the sand lizard and the chameleon. These are unclean to you among all that creep along. I mean, anyone who touches them when they are dead becomes unclean until evening. Man, that's a lot of information right there. But if you're an Israelite in a part of this culture, this is something that should have been discussed with you, something that you have recognized, and that you have no problem walking out. But of course, again, being here in America, there's a different mindset of what food is, based on the people that have had us in captivity. When we came over here in the beginning, none of this was a problem. None of it. Because we didn't touch none of this stuff until they forced it on us. They made it our daily eat because of course they knew they knew who we were, and they wanted to defile us. They wanted to I guess cause us to be out of covenant with Yah. And now we take these things on and act as if they're a part of our culture. Soul food. We talk on these things as if it's our normal thing, but it was our normal thing in poverty or in bondage. It was a normal thing when we were captive. And we claim to be free right now, but most of us will, eat this defiled stuff and see no issue with it. But we over and over hear from our doctors and everything else that it causes health issues. Because again, if you're taking in something that's taking in life, the death or whatever, the disease and the toxins, and cleaning those things up, those things are taken out of, like the shellfish. They take the toxins out of the waters, but they take it within themselves. So you're eating that and consuming the toxins. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Go back to sharing my screen again. So many of us around this time of the year, um, a lot of folks jump into what they call a Daniel fast when it actually was not a fast. Daniel and the other three Hebrew brothers or boys that were given other names, that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are not their names, but that was slave names that was given them. And so those young men were set apart to Yah. And so they were ceremonially clean themselves. The king had them cleaned up and wanted them to be ceremonially clean for him. And he wanted to offer them his ceremonial meats and foods, his ceremonial drink. So let's read. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, sovereign of Yehuda, Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And Yahuwah gave Jehoiakim, sovereign of Yehuda, into his hands with some of the utensils of the house of Elohim, which he brought to the land of Shinar, to the house of his mighty one. So he's taking these set apart items of Yah and putting them amongst his mighty one, defiling them, making them unclean. But this is not food right here, but these are items. But let's keep going. And he brought the utensils into the treasure house of his mighty one. And the sovereign said to Ashpenaz, the chief of his eunuchs, to bring some of the children of Yasharel and some of the sovereign's descendants and some of the nobles. Bring me these that are set apart in this land. Bring them to me. Young men who there was no blemish. Clean animals without blemish were the only thing that could be sacrificed to Yah. These men were clean without blemish, but good looking, having insight and all wisdom, having knowledge and understanding, comprehension, learning, capable to stand in the sovereign's palace and to teach them the writing and speech of the Kasdim. And the sovereign appointed for them daily ration of the sovereign's food that's set apart to him, this sovereign. This is ceremonial food for him and his. These men that were set apart to Yah, if they consume this, they now would be set apart to this sovereign and not to Yah. So the sovereign's food, so this would be what would be labeled food in his culture, but many will probably say, oh, this was probably unclean stuff, but it doesn't say that it was unclean far as, the animals, but it's not clean because it's set for this sovereign and not our sovereign. That's why it's unclean. And of the wine which he drank, and 3 years of training for them, so that at the end thereof they should stand before the sovereign. They would be set apart to him. He is a mighty one, taken from another mighty one, and now established to be set apart for him is what he's trying to do. Now among them were the sons of Yehuda, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Notice it was not the names that I said earlier. And the chief of the eunuchs gave them names, for he called Daniel Belteshazzar and Hananiah Shadrach. See, now they changing the names. And these names, if you look into them, are not pleasant names, but, it's disrespectful to our Yah. But their names are glorifying Yah, because you see Yah at the end and you see El at the end. Daniel is called Belteshazzar, and Hananiah Shadrach, and Mishael Meshach, and Azariah Abednego. But Daniel laid it upon his heart that he would not defile himself. Notice, defile. He wouldn't take in this unclean stuff with the portion of the sovereign's food, nor with the wine which he drank. So he asked permission from the chief of the eunuchs not to defile himself. And Elohim granted Daniel loving commitment and compassion from the chief of the eunuchs. He wanted to stay set apart to Yah and not be set apart to the sovereign. But the chief of the eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear my master, the sovereign, who has appointed your food and drink. For why should he see your faces looking worse than the young men who are your age? Then you would make my head guilty before the sovereign. And Daniel said to the overseer, whom the chief of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please try your servants for 10 days and let them give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. This is not saying that they didn't eat meat. They didn't want the king's meat. They didn't want ceremonial meat of this king. This is not saying that they didn't eat meat, but during this time, they didn't eat meat. It's not a fast because they weren't not eating at all, but they didn't want anything to do with this unclean meat, this meat that was set apart to the sovereign and not set apart to Yah. Then let our appearances be examined before you, and the appearance of the young men who eat the portion of the sovereign's food, and do with your servants as you see fit. He basically put them to test the spirit. And he listened to them in this matter and tried them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, their appearances looked better and fatter. They even, got healthier off the situation. Not they didn't lean up or whatever, but they looked fatter. They looked full. They looked muscular in flesh than all the young men who ate the portion of the sovereign's food. And it came to be that the overseer took away their portion of the sovereign's food and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables, fruits and vegetables. Man, let me keep going. That ceremonial meat, that's what made it unclean. It wasn't that it was meat. All right. I'm going to show you something here. It's showing here that Yah is going to send for judgment on those that eat these abominable meats. So I'm going to start here at verse 16 in Yeshai or Isaiah 66. And it says, For by fire and by his sword, Yahuwah shall judge all flesh being all mankind, and the slain of Yahuwah shall be many. Those who set themselves apart and cleanse themselves at the garden after one in the midst eating flesh of pigs. Remember how the king had his own food set apart. We can, try to set ourselves apart. But the problem is, if you're Israel, he's told you dietary law. So now these people right here, setting themselves apart, cleansing themselves in the garden, and after one miss, eating the flesh of pigs, something that's forbidden, and the abomination of the mouse. These are going to be snatched away together, declares Yahuwah. Has this happened? No. This is something that is going to happen. It's not happened. If I go up a little bit, you'll see that he's coming in the clouds. Two-edged sword. No, he's coming. And most time people say, "Oh, well, he's coming." Yah uses representatives for every time he do something here on this natural or physical plane because he's spirit. It could be David. It could be Yahusha. Doesn't really matter as long as it happens. Well, it does matter. I'm saying, but the focus is not on that at the moment. Let's keep going. Let me keep looking it through my notes. So I want to show you something. When the people were in Egypt, Joseph, basically came there and became a bondman or a slave, but then he rose to a position of authority. And in that, he helped, I guess, preserve Israel. You could even say save them. He was like a savior to them. But you move forward in the narrative, you see that there comes a time that they're back in bondage in there, so this you went from Yosef and having everybody come there and living in prosperity, but then it ends up a time of bondage, and now another deliverer or a person to save them, another Messiah, you can say another one was anointed and appointed to bring them out. But let's go. Let's go. So we're gonna go over here and deal with the Passover. Because if it's unlawful to eat meat at all, again, why is Yah telling his people to eat meat? But let's go. Share my screen again and popping over here. Let's see. To Shemot or Exodus 12. We'll read a few verses here. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aharon in the land of Mizraim, saying, This new moon, new month, is the beginning of new moons, new months for you. It is the first new moon of the year for you. Speak to all the congregation of Yasharal, saying, On the 10th day of this new moon, each one of them is to take for himself a lamb, an animal, one of the clean animals, of course, according to the house of his father, a lamb for a household, not for a pet. And if the household is too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of the beans. According to each man's need, you make your count for the lamb. The lamb be a perfect one, without blemish, a year old male, take it from the sheep or from the goats. And ye shall keep it until the 14th day of the new moon month. Then all the assembly of the congregation of Yasharel shall slay it between the evenings. And they shall take some of the blood and put it on the two doorposts on the lintel of the houses where they eat it. They eat it. They're getting directed to eat flesh, eat this lamb, this male. And they shall eat the flesh on that night, roasted in fire, with unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Do not eat it raw, nor boiled at all with water, but roasted in fire, its head with its legs and its inner parts. And you do not leave it of it until morning. So eat it all up. And what remains of it until morning you are to burn with fire. Get rid of all the leftovers of it. And this is how you eat it. Your loins girded, so your loins covered up, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is the Pesach, the Passover of Yahuwah. So again, we're getting directed again to eat meat. Some will teach that this was added, and it's like, where do you get that from? Yah is directly telling people to eat. So, we have this narrative nowadays that, many try to make Yahusha be the Father. They want him to be one and the same, not one in accord and agreement, but one and the same. So we got Yah talking about the Passover. Let's deal with Yahusha talking about the Passover. So let's go over here to Matthew or Matthew Yahoo. Let's go over there. All right. Share my screen again. So Matthew Yahoo, what's called chapter 26. We're gonna go with what's called verse 17. It says, and on the first day of unleavened bread, the taught ones, we call them disciples, came to Yahusha, saying to him, where do you wish us to prepare for you to eat the Pesach, the Passover? They're asking him where they're supposed to set up for him to eat the Passover. Not just them, but for him to eat the Passover. This is Yahusha. He was preparing to eat the Passover. Let's keep going. And he said, go into the city to a certain man and say to him, the teacher says, my time is near. I am to perform the Pesach. So he's going to be officiating the Pesach, the Passover. He said, at your house with my taught ones. And the taught ones did as Yahusha had ordered them and prepared the Pesach. If he was so against eating meat and the Passover situation is about eating meat, the teaching that people are doing basically is tearing down this whole book. If you believe in something different, then so be it. But come on, I come on, you're trying to make it a sin on something that you're being directed to do. I'm like, it's a complete lie. Just saying that Yahusha forbids eating meat. If he telling them to have a Passover, I'm like, oh, let's deal with Yahusha some more. Let's go. Gonna go over here to Matthew Yahoo 14, which is before the other one. And it says we're gonna go over here to verse 14. What's verse 14. And it says, and when Yahusha came out, he saw a large crowd and was moved with compassion for them and healed their sick. So he's doing ministry. And when evening came, his taught ones came to him, saying, this is a deserted place, and the hour is already late. Dismiss the crowd so that they may go into the villages and buy food for themselves. Food. They're identifying food. These are cultural people, Yahudim, so their standard of food would be the same of them. They're being Yahudim or Yasharal, the standard would be of that dietary law. Food. But Yahusha said to them, they do not need to go away. Give them, eat yourselves. Feed them food yourselves. So what he's telling them to offer them has to fit within the guidelines of what he believes is food. And they said to him, we have only 5 loaves and 2 fish. What are fish? We know that loaves are bread, but fish are the animals, living creatures. These people that teach that you're not supposed to eat any meat, he has 5 loaves and 2 fishes presented to him, and he said, bring them here to me. And commanding the crowds to sit down on the grass, and taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to the Shamayim, to heaven, he favored Baruch and broke and gave the loaves to the taught ones, and the taught ones gave to the crowds. Hold on. He's preparing fish and loaves for the people. Like I said, if you are not eating and abstaining from it, why would you serve somebody something that you want yourself or you think is wrong? He's serving these people that he's ministered to life. He's serving them bread and fish. And all ate and were satisfied, and they picked up the pieces left over, 12 baskets filled. And those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. So it was over 5,000 people that he fed fish and loaves. If he's ministering to these people life, why would he give them something that is death? It doesn't make sense. But let's keep going because this is basically coming to the end of this section because I'm gonna go over and do this video part two after this. But let's go. Let's go. We're going over here to Lucas or Luke 24 and going to start at 36. And it says, and they were saying this. Yahushua himself stood in the midst of them and said to them, peace to you. Said shalom. And being startled and frightened, they thought they had seen a ruach, a spirit. And he said to them, why are you troubled? And why do doubts arise in your hearts? See my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. Handle me and see. For a spirit of ruach does not have flesh. Yahusha is walking around with flesh. Yahuwah is a ruach, the holiest of all ruachs. So, you know, I'm going to go get back to where I'm. For a spirit does not have flesh. Just want to read that one more time. For a spirit, a ruach, does not have flesh and bones as you see I have. He's acknowledging that he's not a spirit. He's not a ruach. And saying this, he showed them his hands and his feet. And while they were still not believing for joy and marveling, he said to them, have you any food? Any food? Man, any food here? And they gave him a piece of broiled fish and some honeycomb. Fish, broiled fish, and honeycomb. And taking it, he ate in their presence. He didn't just feed people fish and loaves, but he ate. I didn't share something, but I want to share this before I get out of here because, I'm going to the second section, but I want to share something, and so let me do that. I want to I'm gonna deal with something that I'm going to be dealing with in the second section, and I just want to hit this off. So let me go there, and and this is going to be also the start of the second part. But I'm not there. I'm not going to stop this video yet. I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to come back to this same thing. But let me go ahead and share my screen and show you what I want to deal with. All right, I'm sharing my screen. And so hopefully you can see this. The Greek 1033 Broma is what I want to deal with. So it says here, the verse 1 Timothy 4:3, it says, forbidding to marry and commanding to abstain from meats. Meats, which is G1033, which Yah have created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. So again, 1033, Broma. Let me blow this up a little bit. Broma. First thing it says is food. But the two, it says ceremonially, especially articles allowed or forbidden by the Jewish law. So this is being allowed, literally and figuratively. Okay. In the context of ceremonially clean meats, the laws of cleanliness in the Old Testament, particularly in Leviticus, dictate that certain animals are considered clean and may be consumed, while others are deemed unclean and must be avoided. Clean meats, animals such as oxen, sheep, goats, deer, gazelles, and certain birds are alone allowed for consumption. You can eat these things. Unclean meats, animals like pigs, swine, which have split hooves, do not chew the cud, and certain marine animals are prohibited. Rabbits, mice, unclean. And marine would be like shrimp, the shellfish, and all these, the crab, lobster. Ceremonial cleanness. The laws emphasize the importance of ritual purity. The law emphasizes the importance of ritual purity. The law emphasizes the importance of ritual purity, requiring individuals to be ceremonially clean, be consuming clean meats. All right, let me bring this back down. Prayas, meat, flesh. Let me read this Romans 14:20. For meat, again, that's that 1033, destroy not the work of Yah. All things indeed are pure. Things that are considered meat, ceremonial clean meat, are considered of God, of Yah. Hold on, let me see. Let me start over. For meat, ceremonial clean meat, destroy not the work of Yah. All things indeed are pure, but it is evil for that man who eateth with offense. So if you one of these that don't believe eating meat is right, you shouldn't eat it. You shouldn't touch it. It is good neither to eat flesh. Look at what flesh is. Flesh, that's just this krios or G2907. It's meat, butcher's meat, to eat meat. And we already see the context is dealing with ceremonial clean meat. So it's things that are clean and not unclean. But you have people that the vegans or they don't really partake in the Passover and stuff like that. They say that all of that stuff, eating flesh, is a sin. But eating meat or not eating meat is not a problem. But it's when you try to force your way of living on someone else, that's the problem. So it is good neither to eat flesh, nor drink wine, nor anything whereby thy brother stumbleth or is offended or is made weak. So if somebody else is struggling with that, if I'm dealing with vegans, if somebody that it bothers them to see meat eating, oh, there's Bambi on your plate. I won't eat it for that season, that moment. I can go away from them and eat it. But again, people try to harass others into their own convictions, and that's not right. But let me finish this section out. I'm done with this beginning part, and I'm finna come back live again with the other part because this whole focus is not just on the dietary laws and what's clean far as or ceremonial clean just in meat, but also I want to show about men. I want to deal with that because there's a lie on that as well. Some people want to repackage everything and say that Christianity, they're the clean, they're the set apart, and all the covenants were written about Israel. Yasharal, Yah set apart and ceremonially clean those that would be his royal priesthood, those who would be his mouthpiece to other nations. those that would restore his original plan. Adam was supposed to have dominion over the earth, but he was the start. He was ceremonially clean because Yah set him apart. So everything that came from him or through him should be clean. But yet you have the defiling that goes forth. So again, my whole narrative and my topic here was dealing with unclean, far as dealing with, men. That's where it's going. But at first it was dealing with the animals and stuff, the food. It's like from food to meat. I want to set it straight. People been lying. They've been putting forth, manipulation out there and trying to force a narrative that y'all didn't put in place. Yes, men did start off eating just vegetation, but men also started off naked. That was the way we were created, naked, walking around unclothed. Now most of our clothing comes what? From these same animals. You know, they can accept one change, but not another. They say, "Oh, you should go back to not eating any meat." Well, okay, walk around naked too, then. But that they said, "Oh, that's extreme." Well, you're a little bit extreme when you're trying to put somebody in hell for not eating like you. But all right, Abiyah, thank you for this section. Moving to the next. Yada Yahuwah. I'm gonna stop this and then I'm gonna start right back up. Yada Yahuwah.